I'm a serial entrepreneur and I've built 5 businesses over the last 25 years. I also believe that life is not linear and our lives are all full of twists and turns to teach us who we really are and give us power in this world. I believe integrity, connection, and curiosity are my main values in life, those 3 things. And I'm happiest, I think, when I'm creating something meaningful, surrounding myself with really good people.
I'm Di Gillett, and welcome to the Power of Women podcast. And what I love about this platform is the opportunity to showcase and celebrate the strength, resilience, and achievement of women from all walks of life. And this is where real stories are told and where we remind you to never assume. We talk resilience, reinvention, and breakthroughs, and the moments that often don't make the headlines but should. So join the conversation and subscribe, please, wherever you listen to your podcast, because that helps us amplify the message out there and be part of the Power of Women community. Have you ever thought about starting your own business? Today's conversation is with Mandi Gunsberger, 5-time founder, visionary dealmaker, and powerhouse behind Babyology and Nourish Travel. We're going to talk about the real cost of entrepreneurship, which includes burnout, identity, and the pressure of holding it all together whilst building something truly extraordinary. It's a fast-paced masterclass in business growth, connection, and the power of vulnerability. Mandi Gunsberger, welcome to the Power of Women podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Di. I'm so excited to be here today and share all the good, the bad, and a lot of the ugly about building businesses and what that entails.
Brilliant. So let the masterclass begin. You've Look, I don't even know where to start because there's a lot with it, Mandi, but you've built 5 businesses, you've raised 3 daughters, you've successfully sold on Australia's largest parent media company, which was Babyology. Where does your entrepreneurial spirit come from?
Yeah, that's an interesting question to start with. And I'd have to say, number one, it would be my dad. He was 100% my person. And he was a very different type of entrepreneur, I suppose, in the 70s and the 80s. He was an entrepreneur for necessity, really, and to put food on the table versus what a lot of us do now. So, he owned a record company. He was a jewellery salesman. He was a clown at kids' birthday parties. I remember at the age of 5 going on newspaper runs with him at 5 a.m., where you'd throw the newspaper out the car and it would end up in someone's front garden. So, he was always hustling just for the next dollar to be able to feed us, very middle class that I grew up in. And so he had to do that. But I feel like I've always hustled from a young age as well. I used to, I don't know if that's a hustle really. I used to steal money from the bank in Monopoly when I used to play that with my sister. That's more illegal than a hustle.
Might not be hustle.
No, but I would have an auction in our room every week when we were kids, and she was older than me, and I would auction off both our toys to her and try and make a few bucks until Mum found out what was going on.
That's hustling.
But really, from the age of 13, I worked in hairdressing salons. I worked in a bakery, from 5 a.m. I used to work in cafes or stock shelves at the supermarket. So I was always looking, selling local cookies in the area and things like that. So I think that's when it all started for me was, in my teenage years. And then moving over to San Francisco in my early 20s was just so incredibly eye-opening. It was the dot-com era.
Tell us about that. What did you do? What was that?
Oh, it was crazy. So I able to somehow wangle myself a work visa, which is very, very hard to do from Australia to America. But I just finished uni. I was 22 years old. I moved over with my boyfriend and I worked in hotels. So I worked in the Hilton, Hyatt and Intercontinental hotels, which was a crazy world to be in. And I think I managed to get there because it was dot-com era. So, a lot of regular people were leaving regular jobs in the Bay Area to go for the .com, where you'd go canoeing on a Friday and there'd be foosball in the break rooms and all that stuff. So it was actually a good time for me to wangle my way in and to
Sounds
see.
very Google, Mandi.
It was very Google. It was when all of that was just starting to happen. And, you'd see 22-year-olds over there driving a Ferrari, ordering a burger with a $600 bottle of wine from Napa. So I think I just really was like, wow, that's really impressive. So when we moved back from San Francisco when I was 24, 25, I really had that entrepreneurial spirit in me.
Yeah, wow, great story. So with that in mind, what fuels you more? Is it the buzz of creating and scaling a business, or is it the satisfaction of seeing the successful exit?
Oh gosh, 100% the creating the business every single time. I think, the buzz of coming up with an idea, acting on it, working bloody hard for many years, they're not overnight successes by all means, and turning it into something profitable that comes from that idea is just so rewarding. I mean, if you're in it just for the exit in Australia, I think nowadays 10% of startups, fail within the first year and 70% fail within those next 2 to 5 years. So if you're in it to be at that exit, 90% it's not going to happen. I think even higher if you're a woman, to be honest. So a successful exit, while it is pure gold, it's incredibly unlikely that you have that successful exit. So you've really got to love the build. You've got to love the drive. You've got to love working every second of every day to build something that you believe in. And I think, one of my incredible mentors, Jane Huxley, way back when, actually taught me very early how you go into a new business idea while planning your exit. So it might never happen, but I think it's worth thinking about when you build, like what you want it to look like. Do you want it to be a lifestyle business? Do you want to sell out of it? Do you want to stay on when someone buys it? All those questions, because I think that really affects the way you build it, determining how you set it up, if you take funding, who you take funding from along the way. So it does affect the final outcome. So I do now, when I launch something these days, I do work backwards as to what does this look like in 10, 15, 20 years, because that does really affect the way you run it. But absolutely, hands down, I love the build. I love getting that first sale. I love, when profit actually exceeds what it should be, what you thought it would be. It's never about the exit, although it's obviously very exciting. I did have one big exit, but again, 5 businesses, 1 exit. So it doesn't happen all the time.
But that hustle is what you developed as a kid. I mean, that's
absolutely.
That's the kid trading off your toys in the bedroom.
Definitely. And especially for someone like me where all my businesses are not in a specific area, it's literally sitting there and going, someone else is not doing this. Or for instance, coming back from San Francisco and being obsessed with those triangular scones that they had at Starbucks at the time and thinking, I'm going to be the next Byron Bay cookie company because that's not here yet. So it's any idea I come up with, I just launch myself into and see where it goes.
Yeah, and that's a great visionary mindset to read what's going on in the marketplace and be curious. And I love that attitude. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about seeing what's not around and then actually discovering why it's not around. Maybe there's a very good reason no one else has gone up against that company. But if there's not, you just think, well, if I don't do it, someone else might do it.
Yeah, So you've developed a reputation as a relationship ninja and visionary deal maker. How did those tags come about?
Look, I think I've always been a people person from a very young age, like from a child, and then moving into hospitality as my first career as well led me to understand and know a lot about people. And I think when I look at that and the way partnerships work, I look at partnerships as being a lot like great relationships. So they're really about the people behind them and building those connections rather than, the paperwork and what goes into it. I think for me, trust and respect is a big one. So actually finding people who care about each other's success is huge in this space. Having shared values is another big one. It's not just about the goals, it's about alignment with one another. And honest communication. Often when you meet people or you're trying to work on partnerships, it's not working out, and it's about having those difficult conversations or working out how to pivot or going your own way at an early stage and realizing it wasn't meant to be. That's very important rather than holding on to something for, much longer than you should have because you think it should work out. So for me, it's always been about real connection with people, 100%. So any deal, any partnership, anyone I've ever worked with has started with a genuine chat rather than necessarily a pitch. And, a great example I think of with something like that is a dear friend of mine, Rob Antelov, who's actually an incredible M&A advisor. He was and he still is. And when I was building Babyology, Rob, probably after 2 years, approached me, or I met him through a friend of mine, and we had a coffee, and I was nowhere near any type of M&A exit, whatever, and this is what he does. But I think probably for the next 6 or 7 years, I would have a coffee or chat to Rob every year or every 18 months and just ask for his advice, and he'd give it out to me, with no idea that when it came to it, I would approach him. And I'd actually met other advisors through the journey and worked with them for a while. But when it came to, me raising money at the end and selling the business and who I wanted by my side, hands down, it was Rob, because I built that trust with him, and he'd given me all that knowledge over those years. And I mean, that was a brilliant experience for me and for him. And since then, I think I've introduced him to 15 to 20 other entrepreneurial friends who he's, given advice to over the years. Some of them he's sold their businesses, some of them he hasn't. But I look at that as a real pinnacle for what relationships and partnerships out there are, is that whole, you stand by someone for years, you don't know if it's ever going to go anywhere, but when the time comes, it might go somewhere, and then it's a win for everyone. So
it's a good
he's
story.
been a huge influence in my life. He's a good guy, and I don't think.
And I agree. I think partnerships are so hard. I mean, I've worked for individuals who've been probably the longest standing partners in the search and recruitment world, and it's admirable because it is not easy to choose partners. I've gone into business with people before, and I've looked to go into business with people before, and seen the red flag just before we've signed on the dotted line, and I approached it really like a marriage, because it's much easier to call it before you get married than trying to unbundle it once you're married.
100%. And a lot of people don't get to do. A lot of people find out after the time that it's not a good fit with someone. So, and it really is. You spend more time than your business partner than you do with your actual partner if you're in business. True. And one thing I've always done is I've never had a business with other people that, partnership with them. It just isn't my style, I don't think. I like to make decisions very quickly, and you can't often do that when you've got 2 or 3 founders.
Well, when you got to buy in, I know I was in business with somebody who you always used to say to me, and I love them dearly, and they're a friend, but I'm like you, I'm a quick decision maker, and they'd always say, I need to think about it overnight, and I'd go, oh!
Exactly.
Just say
and
yes or no.
I know. Yeah. And look, sometimes you need those people to slow you down, because I don't always make the right decision. Well, and they weren't always,
they're often right. They often stop me jumping into the deep end too soon.
No, absolutely. But I find it's hard to get slowed down. Like board work is a great example of where everything moves very slowly on boards. And I'm like, we've got the meeting now. Why don't we all just say yes? Why are we tabling it for the next 3-month meeting? I just don't understand how that works.
Have you had advisory boards wrapped around your businesses, Mandi?
I have. I've had advisory boards, but never actual boards, which I think is for that reason. So I've always employed advisors or paid advisors or given them equity, but I haven't had a full, NED board experience around me. I've been an NED, but I haven't had them on my board, because I just don't think that's a way that I work very well with 7 other people telling me like, this is what we want to do and we want to go back and we want to review this. I'd be like, I'm already halfway there. So yeah.
You're one of these people it's hard to keep pace with. So I could see that.
Yeah. We'll get to that afterwards. It's not always the best way, but we'll see. Yeah.
So when you're networking, Mandi, when you walk into a room of people, do you scope out and know who you're going to connect with? How do you approach it?
I think, and to be honest, as I get older, big groups of people and big conferences and big events is not necessarily my thing. I much prefer going to a dinner with 10 people or those smaller groups where you really can connect. But for me, I think it's never about networking. It's more about the connection, and I'm drawn to people who are authentic, who are curious, as I said before, and who aren't very performative. So a lot of it, and I know it sounds crazy, but it does come down to gut instinct or that red flag, as you were talking about. I've always been very good at reading people, and I can read someone within 5 minutes, which might not be very fair, but I really can read them instantly and can usually tell if someone's energy, values, and just feeling aligns with mine. And I think it comes down to, like, if that conversation feels real and curious, I will lean into it. But if it's very one-sided and all about their wins and all about what they've achieved, or if they're distracted looking over my shoulder at who else is in the room, I know that they're probably not my vibe, and I tend to, stay away from people like that. And I think I've just got no time for small talk. I don't want to talk about where you're going on holidays, your kids, the weather, like, anything like that. I want to have real, honest conversations about ideas and what drives people. So I think you can really make up your mind within a few minutes, what someone's going to be like. And, you get that, oh my God, we're very similar, or, this is not a conversation that's going to be a deep, thoughtful instance.
Yeah, you've kind of described how my philosophy on life. I mean, going to an opening of an event is I would rather stab myself in the eye with a pen. Yeah. And and I think that term networking is almost a dirty word. You talked about collaborating and finding connection, much more appealing.
Exactly. Collaboration is where it's all at, I think. And to give you an example, I recently did a retreat with 25 women in the Gold Coast, which was incredible. Lee Sales was the host. She's incredible. And they all came away. All these women said they've made lifelong friends. There are people they never thought they'd meet, but they actually didn't still, at the end of the retreat, knew what those other people did for a living. Because I think, that whole, what do you do? Where are you from? Where did you go to school? It's all from the past. You can have such a real conversation with someone about the fact that, I don't know, you've got a deaf person in your family and they've got a deaf person in their family, and you bond over something really real, and you don't actually know what they do, but you want to be part of their world. So I found that really interesting, that women can come away these days and not know if they're a lawyer or a doctor or a librarian. It really doesn't matter anymore, because it's all about if you connect with them or not.
Yeah, I agree. So back to entrepreneurship, Mandi. When you're trying to scale, what's the biggest mistake you see people make when they approach a potential brand or a business partnership?
Right. Look, I think for a lot of people, they still see it as a one-size-fits-all model. So they'll put together, a beautiful shiny deck, and it might look beautiful and it might have amazing information in it. But when you send that out to 10, 20, 50 different brands, you DM people on LinkedIn, you track people down, it's not going to work, because I think true partnerships, they don't work like that. It's really about understanding what that specific brand or that specific individual, what their challenges are, what they care about, and how you can help them achieve their goals. They're kind of the three things that I always look at, because it's different for even like Apple to Samsung. It's different from McDonald's to Hungry Jack's. So like it's, even though you go, well, I'm going out to all these fast food because I want a fast food partner, it's individual for every single one you do. And I think I touched on this before, but for my first 8 years, I was in hospitality. And honestly, I think the world would be a better place if every 20-something-year-old spent some time in hospitality, because it really teaches you what it means to see people, to understand people, how to have genuine conversations. I mean, I was 19 or 20 and I was working at, the Shangri-La in the city. And at that age, to be able to notice how people feel when you make them feel a certain way, it's really affected the way I work in the world and anything I do in any specific business. And one of my all-time favorite books, which I'm not sure if you've read, is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Gurata. Oh my God, it's like I've probably read it 6 times, and I sometimes read it or listen to it in the car. But basically, I'd recommend anyone read it no matter what industry you're in. It's a brilliant reminder that yeah, you can make people feel truly cared for, and there's magic in the tiny things that happen. And I think that
I like
that's
that.
where people go wrong. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be the smallest tiny thing. And his book's brilliant. You know, he talks about one of the biggest things he did one day for people at his restaurant in New York, which was ended up being the top restaurant in the world, but was go out and buy a hot dog for them from a local hot dog vendor, because he overheard them say they're about to leave New York and they didn't get a chance to have a hot dog. So it was like a $6, thing that he did, but he took
Yeah.
it to the kitchen. It was cut into 4 incredible pieces. It was plated up. And because he overheard this conversation, it's those tiny things that I'm always trying to do in life to,
Yeah.
whether it's my clients, my people that come on retreat, or anything. I just try and surprise and delight them with tiny things that will make a difference. And I can guarantee you, if there's a partnership to be had, that's the way to do it versus, blitzing 200 companies with the same document.
I couldn't agree more, Mandy. And in my own experience coming out of the executive search world, I knew only too well that if I had approached somebody, my approach was going to unearth their sort of status quo at the time. And these conversations used to go on for months and months and months. But I always emailed on a Friday afternoon, even when I had nothing to tell them, simply to say no update, because what it felt a short period of time for me, it felt like an eternity for them being on the hook. So it is those little things of caring about how people feel and putting yourself in their
100%.
shoes that I think is so, so important.
And what that would have felt to that person on a Friday afternoon, it meant that they probably never went to any other executive search person, because they're like,
Well, it's how
that,
it is exactly that. It's how I
yeah,
won business. So you're absolutely
exactly,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you've painted a pretty honest picture of juggling work and you're part of the sandwich generation like I am. So you've got
Yeah,
everybody at each end of the
yeah,
spectrum.
yeah.
What does burnout and working under pressure look like when you're actually at the centre of it?
Yeah, that's very interesting and very real still for me. I still work on that a lot. But I think burnout for me, it's not necessarily lying on the floor unable to move. It's more of a subtle and sneaky thing that it catches up with you. So it's doing everything for everyone, as we just said, and feeling like I'm failing at all of it, to be honest. Because when you're stretched so thin and you've got the kids and you've got parents, and let's not forget there's, a husband or a partner or someone, there's clients, there's all this stuff going on. I've got businesses, I'm sitting on boards, I'm whatever, and there's nowhere to turn. And I think, for me, it's trying to even remember what self-care feels like, because every second of every day I'm, up doing something for someone else. So I've had, and here's full honesty, I've had 2 proper full burnouts, nervous breakdowns in the last 20 years where I literally couldn't get out of bed. And so I think I'm hyper aware of the signs that happen with that. It can be tears over losing your charger for your computer. It can be sitting in the car for 2 hours before school pickup, answering emails, whereas really I should be going for a walk. It's cancelling my yin yoga, which I adore, which I did cancel this morning because I knew we were doing this. But, but doing those things, they kind of all just come up on you. And, sometimes it's even like realizing you're lying down for a pap smear, and that feels great because it's the first time I've actually lied down all day. Yeah, and so even though that's quite funny, it's also quite heartbreaking.
It's so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like you go, oh my God, I'm really looking forward to this pap smear because it means I'll just stop for 5 minutes. I'm like, that is not a healthy way to live my life.
No, it's not.
So yeah, and look, and there's no way of getting out of the sandwich generation. Like you can't just throw it all in and run away. But it's about learning how to manage all those pieces. So I think for me, I've learned through the 2 breakdowns, which actually take months to come back from. So if I don't go to that place again, it's actually much better to stop before I get there. So it's, obviously not being everything to everyone. Like sometimes I say to kids, it's 7 p.m. I'm not going to cook. I'm actually going to bed to watch Netflix. I'll see you all in the morning. And I try and not have guilt about that, because I know that I can't possibly do that tonight. That's just what I need. And I think they're fine with that. I cancel on things now, which I never used to. Sometimes I have tickets to certain things, and on the day I'll say to a good friend, I can't. I'm exhausted. What I really need to do is go to bed. And I'm okay with doing those things, where I think for years when I was younger, I wasn't okay with doing those. I'd push myself to go to that big event or that opening, or because, what if I met someone that was going to change my life? Now I'm a bit like, I'm exhausted, so I don't have to do that. So, having systems as well that save your sanity is good. And for me, it's the small moments. So I'm never going to get, the big week away by myself to just ponder my own thoughts. But I will be able to have a laugh with the family. I mean, half the time they're laughing at me, to be honest, which, either can make me laugh or cry, depending on my frame of mind. But yeah, it's a dip in the ocean. It's a 1 hour yin class. It's all those things. I try and go in the ocean every single day now after I go to gym. And I used to be like, oh, that's a bit, I feel a bit guilty about doing that. Screw it. Go to gym, go for a dip in the ocean. I'm at my computer by 9:30 in the morning. So I think, it's really tricky to put those things into your life. But otherwise, we just burn ourselves into the ground. Our parents' generation didn't have laptops and mobiles and all this stuff where we were on 24/7. But I have the ability to wake up at 5 and start working and work till midnight. So it's up to me to not do those things.
I mean, it is a good point. I mean, I grew up with a father who was on the land, and the hours that they'd work, particularly during harvest, were ridiculous. And I probably learnt to work to burnout by observing, and you potentially did too, with a father that was going hard. And sometimes that's just baked into our DNA, I think, and it's hard to unlearn it.
It's really hard to unlearn it. And I think for years, our generation has also been saying, oh, the younger millennials, they don't know how to work. They come in late, they leave early. I've actually changed the way I think about them and think, actually, we could learn from them. They're out at run clubs. They're leaving early to go to yoga or whatever. And I think, good on them. Whereas, 10 years ago, I was like, oh, you hire people and they leave the office at 6 p.m. But good on them. We should have done that for 20 years.
We should have. And when I find myself thinking that, I do sometimes wonder whether we're admiring them or we're actually jealous of them because they've actually taken the decision that we haven't done.
Absolutely, and we're paying the price for that now. I would have loved to all those years have gone and left and gone to, out with a friend rather than being like, I can't, I'm going to work late tonight. I was the one forcing myself to work late. No one else was doing that. But I think that it's great. They have much more of a balance than we do. Maybe they won't have as many mental health problems in their 40s, 50s and 60s that we do. So
So do you have the ability now to realize when you're getting too wrapped up in your business?
To be honest, it's something I'm working on. I found a really, really good, she's almost like a life coach, work coach / psychologist. So she's very good at actually, because I came to her and said, after my last breakdown, which was only last year, I said, I feel like I don't have that internal, other people are able to stop when they want to stop. I will take on more and more and more work until I have a breakdown because I'm just a yes person. So she's helping me put systems in process, in place. And at the moment, we're working on the fact that 2026 is full. Mandy, you have to say no, and you say to people from now on, I can work with you in 2027, which doesn't come easily to me, but it's just, I think it's going to be for the best. So I don't feel like I've got that internal monologue, but I'm working on it.
But there's a great message. You've recognised that you don't, but it's smart to put somebody around you who can manage that. Yeah. So that's a bit like the advisory board.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's in charge of that. Yeah, definitely. I said to her the other day, I've kind of had 2 or 3 retreats a year, then 6 a year, and next year I've got 10. And so we've gone through and worked out that 10 is actually the maximum amount.
It's like doing 10 weddings, Mandy. That's a lot.
I know. Each retreat takes 350 to 400 hours. So, and I don't do that. I don't sit down and work it out. So really what I'm going to need is staff at this point to help me do this. But I didn't realize that she's the one that looked at the hours, looked at at the week and went, do you want to work 130 hours a week? I'm like, no. She's like, well, that's what you've just set yourself up for. So yeah, it's about finding people that want to help, because I just say, oh my God, that sounds so exciting.
Yep,
Let's do it.
there's your mirror.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, brilliant. Well, I'm here talking with Mandi Gunsberger, who is a visionary entrepreneur and, as you've already gathered, a workaholic. But coming up, we're going to explore the power of being vulnerable. If you're loving the Power of Women podcast, be sure to jump on to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button to ensure you never miss an episode. So you've been pretty candid in our discussion today about burnout, and your last one, as you said, was only in the last 12 months ago. What did you do after selling Babyology?
Oh, that's a big question. So, after selling Babyology, I thought I'd carefully planned out my exit, to be honest, and I'd negotiated exactly how many hours I would consult to the new owners as a maximum. But the day the deal was done, they literally said, we've got it from here. So that was a massive blow to me, which was, for the best in the long term. But I still remember walking out of the office that day feeling like Jerry Maguire. Like I literally, I packed a box. I had a tin of tuna and a notebook. That was pretty much all I had in my own company. And I even had to ask them, like, I wanted to take my staff for lunch, and it just all felt so surreal. But we'd always been so big on setting up a wiki that we'd had like this 400-page wiki, which now everyone has with their business, but it was the Bible of the business, that they were basically like, we've got it from here, we don't need you anymore. So that was really odd, I think, and that was very surreal after 11 years of building a business.
If you
I
could
didn't really know.
Sum up in 2 words what that feeling was, what are those 2 words?
Oh, those 2 words would just be devastated, surprised. Like it took me a few weeks to be like, from 1 minute we're signing papers and we've just done this big deal, and now I'm no longer in the office, because I think also in media it was unheard of. Like I basically sold at that time thinking someone would buy us for 2 or 3 years and then we'd be able to live our lives, and all of a sudden we were leading our lives and didn't know what to do with them, because my husband was in the business then as well, and we were both all of a sudden like unemployed. So that was okay. But then, so I think I was like, well, I'm going to help other founders. So, I went and consulted with other founders, still very fresh out of my business. But honestly, it just didn't light me up at that point in my life. I found it really hard when I couldn't actually make things happen. And you'd go and you'd meet with someone, you'd suggest all this stuff, and a month later none of it had been done. So I was actually quite offended by that.
That's the thing about consulting. I think consulting's really hollow, because you come up with all of the big picture stuff, but it's not your task to do the implementation.
No,
and I find that for a doer, and I've seen that in the search world. I would never advise somebody with your demeanour to go into the consulting world, because it would be unfulfilling.
Exactly. Well, I know that now, but I did not know that then.
Did not know that then.
So I found it like really frustrating. So really what I did then was I threw myself into planning a massive bucket list adventure to Tuscany with my family. So we moved our 3 girls over to Tuscany for a year. Husband wasn't very keen to go. He was literally like, you need a job, you need something to entertain you. But I'm like, we are going to Tuscany. So we had the most incredible, life-changing year where we went to over 20 different countries that year. My girls were 5, 11 and 12. So really interesting time to pull them out of their worlds. Lots of family time, no running around, no meetings, no agendas. We did some consulting over there in the early hours, but really we just got to hang out and enjoy. And that was 2019. So we were really lucky. We didn't even know COVID was around the corner. So we did that whole year there, brought them back to go to school in that February when everyone was like, oh my God, you're from Italy, you've got COVID.
4 weeks before.
Before it all happened, exactly. So it was kind of crazy. And then I think came the harder years, that whole post-COVID-y time. For the first time in 20 years, I think I decided I'd go get a real job. And, I hadn't worked for anyone else for years. But I just thought, the stability, it was that whole grass is greener on the other side, stability of a paycheck, someone else being in charge, me just, rocking up and staying in my box. Yes, I got fired 3 times, not once, but 3 times. So,
how did that go? Yeah. Not so well.
Not so well. I just couldn't stay in my box. I would go in and try and make too much change, and other founders or other people in organisations.
Were you surprised to be fired, Mandi, or did you expect it?
I was really surprised the first and second time. The third time, I kind of expected it, and then, realised, as many of us are, we're just unemployable. Like, no one wants someone who's been doing their own.
And that's a badge of honour. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a badge of honour.
Exactly. But I just thought it'd be nice for a while, like to be, someone pays you for sick leave and for like holiday leave. Well, just nice to be able to say to the kids, don't worry, I've got this, rather than we really don't know what's going to happen this time next week or next year. But yeah, I think that silver lining of that period and that chapter reminded me to my core that I am a founder, that I do like to create things, that I'm, that's really what I'm built for. So, I use everything I've learned, and I've, gone again because I was like, I think I could do another one. So, so I think that it's not all bad, but it was like very much, after I'd always get to that 6-month period, and then they'd call me in and be like, yeah, this is not working out. So I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, sometimes it was like I was completely unaware, and then other times I'm
fired for overperforming and not underperforming. Yeah. Who would have thought?
Yeah, but it was overperforming, but it was also just like, I think this is what we should do, and this is how we should do it, and we're not, we've only got this percentage of this, and I think other people don't want to hear that. They're happy to go at their slower pace, and not have someone else tell them what to do. So I know that now. So, yes.
Good to know. So you've said from the deepest reset, sometimes doesn't come from doing more, but it actually does come from doing less. A bit like your year in Tuscany. Why do you actually think that is such a hard message for overachievers, such as yourself, to actually absorb?
Yeah, and you, Di, it sounds like you're same as me. So, but I think, to be honest, for most of us high achievers, our entire identity has been built around doing things and ticking things off and getting things done. Like, that's the way I've lived since I was a teenager. So I've been rewarded my whole life for being productive, for being reliable, for being capable. I'm the one that gets things done. I'm the one that organises the family get-togethers, the Christmas, who's bringing what. So when you suddenly stop or slow down and say, I don't want to host that, it does feel, or it can feel like a failure. So I struggle with that. And I think, I'm probably not the only person out there who writes something on my to-do list after I've done it, just so I have the glee and crossing it off and feeling like I've achieved
that was
more.
Just me.
No, see, we all do it. I'm like, done that, putting that on my list, crossing it off. Exactly. So
I have a day list with colour-coded tabs that vary in colour based on urgency, Mandi.
Yeah, no, see, we need help. And it's not easy for people like us then to slow down, to sit and read a book. I'll sit and read a book, but then I've got my laptop open and I'm over here going, oh, what emails have I got? Because that's what makes me feel good, is doing those things. So for me, it did take the complete burnouts, which I hope, other people listening do not have to go through, to realise that, rest is not a weakness. For me, it always felt like a weakness. I had to keep going, but it actually is more wisdom than anything. As I said, looking at the younger generation and them taking time out, I wish that I would have done that earlier, or given myself permission to pause, or to breathe, or to go to yoga, or to read a book, But it's really uncomfortable for people like myself or yourself that spent decades proving their worth through how many things I can achieve on a list every day. So it's learning a new language, and it's, a language of stillness and not having to be busy, going.
What do you think your kids are learning? Do you think you're producing another generation of you, or do you think they're a little bit more informed?
I
Yeah.
think, to be honest, and they're now 13, 18, and 19.
Yeah,
No, I
right.
think they've seen me. They've been through my breakdowns. They've been through my previous 3 months where from last, I don't know, September till December, I really couldn't get out of bed because I was so burnt out. You rebuild yourself by doing one activity a day. Today I'm going to have a shower. Today, like really severe
You've
burnout. And
really done it, haven't you? Yeah.
I just hit the bottom so quickly because I never know when to stop. So I think the girls have seen that, and it actually has taught them a
And they've
lesson.
said we're not going to do that. We're not going to
Yeah,
repeat
they're
it.
like, you're
Yep.
crazy. Why do you now when I'm like, I've got these 10 retreats, they're all like, you're a bloody idiot, mum. Like, you know that you're gonna fall under all that weight. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna get help. I'm gonna, hire people. Because I don't want to be there again, and I'm not good at saying no. So I've got this other person over here who is my no person, my kind of advisor, and then my kids and my family that say, do you really want to go there again? So I do think the girls, even the little one at 13, has seen me. She comes in and goes, are you driving me to school? No, looks like you're staying in bed again today. So, I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing for them to learn at this age.
No, no,
It
no.
would be
I
nice for
I
them not to
agree.
see it, but I think that's what life is. You work too hard and you burn out and you fall in a heap.
Yeah, I know in my own role models in life I learned as much from the negative things as I did from the positive, and I mean that should be our learning journey in life in general, that we acquire
100%.
it from all of those
Yeah.
experiences. So
Yeah.
so tell me about your business. You're now focusing on other people's wellness, I suspect, in these retreats.
I
The
am,
irony of that,
exactly.
Mandy.
Exactly. And that's the thing. What does it look like if the owner and founder of a wellness business who talks about giving yourself a rest has a nervous breakdown? It's not a good look. So I definitely try to practice what I preach and take that pause and take that breath. But yeah, absolutely. Nourish Travel was born out of my own healing journey. I hit that wall after I sold Babyology, and I spent so many years in that constant juggling the business, juggling the kids, juggling parents, trying to hold everything together, and running on that pure adrenaline. And so that year in Tuscany for me, well, I say to everyone, you don't need to go to Tuscany to have that year, but it was just such an eye-opening experience to be able to sit outside and not have a plan and not go anywhere. And Tuscany taught me that they do one meeting a day. I mean, one meeting a day. That's how they
Is
live their
that
life. And
right?
quite often it's incredible. So I got there and I was like, 10, 12, 2, and I'd be late for everything because quite often that 10 o'clock meeting is them saying, let's have a coffee, let's get to know each other, let's go
Now
for a
I know
walk.
why in the rag trade we
Yeah.
always used to know that fabric deliveries would always be late from Italy because they ran on
Yes.
their own time, and that is
They
what
run on
you're
their own
talking about.
schedule. And I don't think
Yeah,
that's a bad thing. They're calmer,
yeah.
they're happier, love life, they have their siesta. So,
Mm.
I haven't brought a lot of that back in, but the one meeting a day thing really got me because that meeting is often a coffee, then a walk, then a nice lunch. And, you spend 3 or 4 or 5 hours with one person and then you decide whether you're going to work with them. So talk about partnerships and really understanding what someone wants.
Mm.
That's an incredible
There's
way
a
of
lot
looking
to
at that.
learn. Yeah, there's a lot
A
to
lot
learn
to
from
learn
that.
from, whereas we think having 8 meetings a day is really the way to do it. Bang, 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 bang. And, you get on a call and you're like, right, where are we? Have we signed a contract? What are we doing? That's not necessarily the way other people work around the world.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I think during that time I started to do things that helped me feel more human and come out of that real adrenal fatigue I was in. It was, having honest conversations with many other women as well, all through COVID, just about that they're all carrying all these things. So I think that's how
Mm.
Nourish Travel really began, was to be able to create a space to offer other women and men. We have a lot of men that come on our retreats as well. Just
That's great.
permission to slow down. So I do things that are one day, I do things that are 3 days, I do them locally, I do them internationally in Tuscany or Botswana or wherever hosts want to go. But it's all about, even if it's just the one day one, giving you that space to just look out for yourself. If you want to spend that day sitting and reading a book and not talking to anyone, do it. Like, I don't force anyone. It's not a retreat where I'll gong your room and say, it's time for the morning sunset walk. If someone, I had a woman recently that came to one, and she had a 1, a 4, and a 5-year-old, had never been away from them, and her husband gifted it to her. She just wanted to sleep. And I was like, I'm just going to come check on you and make sure that you've eaten, but otherwise you don't need to be at anything. And so for everyone, it actually means something different. It's some people it's connecting with others, some people it's doing nothing, and some people it's filling that schedule with one thing after the other. But everyone is about to have that
mind you, that's
transformational
harder
moment.
on the organizer because you haven't got a set agenda.
It is. And what I do is I have a set agenda. Actually, today I've just sent out for my next one. These are the 5 or 6 things we're thinking of doing in the afternoon. We're not doing all of them. Let us know which ones you would want to do the most, and I will surprise you with which ones we do. But every single day of every moment, I say nothing is compulsory. If you don't want to come to anything, you don't have to. But women have, and a lot of men as well, have FOMO. So the minute you actually put something on a schedule, they think, oh God, this going to the beekeeping might be the best thing ever. What if I don't go to that? And then what if I don't go to this? So I actually do allow space where nothing is on for those people that feel FOMO, because they can't help themselves come to everything. And then at the end of it, they say, I really wish there was some downtime because I didn't give myself any. So it is harder for me as an organizer, but I think I'm getting to the point where I understand the way people's rhythms work, and giving them that 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 afternoon gap will allow them to have a nap or a swim or do yoga or read a book or whatever. But if I schedule something super fun, they'll be there. So we try, and it's like toddlers. You have to give them their afternoon break. So yeah.
A learning curve. So Mandi, I'd love you to speak directly to the female entrepreneur or business person listening to the podcast today.
Right.
If you were to pay forward all the amassed knowledge and wisdom that you've learned over time, and could speak to the version of yourself who was running on empty, what would you tell her?
Oh, the first thing I tell her is to stop trying to do it all. It's actually impossible. And I don't know anyone who can do it all and not have massive mental health issues by doing that. So I think what I've learned is I don't need to earn rest or love or success by doing more. You've got to believe, which, I've just turned 50 and it's taken me this many years, but you've got to believe that you are enough even when you pause, and especially when you pause. So taking that pause doesn't mean you're not succeeding and that you're failing. It means that you actually care about yourself, about the others around you, about your family, about your business, whatever you're doing, because it will give you more to be able to do things. It's that the world's not going to fall apart if you take that breath. And asking for help is not a weakness. It's actually a strength to say, not coping, can't do it all, don't know how to stop doing it all, which is where I'm always at. I actually can't stop myself, so I need other people to
You need
help me stop.
an outsourced handbrake.
You do. Exactly. And that's fine. I think that's fine. I know that about myself after all these years, that I'm my own worst enemy and I'll take on too much till I fall. So I think that would be the biggest thing, and that's why I absolutely love doing what I do now, because I get these women that come to me. I build a relationship with men and women for the 6 months prior to a retreat about what they want, what it looks like, why they're coming. It's not just those 3 days, and then I tailor it to them so that they get the rest and that individual thing that they need. As I was saying, a retreat is not a one size fits all, get 25 people. I actually understand each person and why they've come and how I can make it special for them. So I love it. It's like all the things I've ever done put into one now.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, Mandi, thank you so much for sharing your entrepreneurial knowledge and also being so candid about being so focused and so committed to pushing yourself to the brink. And I think for many listeners, and I know interviewing you here today, it is a bit like somebody holding up the mirror and you're going, okay, alrighty, I need to read the signs. I need to listen. And as you said so rightly just before, the wheels are not going to fall off if you take an extra hour to go to your yoga class or you do something. And And next time, ring me and say, I need to reschedule because I've got too much on my plate.
No, don't worry. I'm going to yoga tonight. I'm going to go to yoga at 6 p.m.
Excellent.
No, thanks for having me. It's been so lovely to have a chat with you. Love what you do, and I really hope that people get something out of this. I did warn you, I was very honest, so I have been very honest.
That's what we want. And Mandi, what's the name of the business? I'm going to put it in the show notes, but give me the name of the business for the retreat.
Absolutely.
So our listeners
it's
can find you.
nourishtravel.com.
Yep. Beautiful.
Nourishtravel.com. That's it.
Nourishtravel.com. Fantastic.
Exactly.
And I know Mandi shows up on LinkedIn, and if you're interested to learn more about what I do outside of the podcast, I too show up quite a bit on LinkedIn, and I've got a Power of Reinvention newsletter that I post weekly there. And like Mandi, I'm in midlife and we're doing lots of things and we're not stopping. So
exactly, it's our time. Those children are growing up, so it's our time. Thanks so much for having me, Di.
Thanks, Mandi. Until next time.